What's up guys, Matt Day here, and today I want to talk to you guys about shooting different cameras and different formats and some of the things that come along with that. About a year ago, I made a video called Simplifying Your Gear, and that was all about me selling all of my cameras except for my Leica and a 35mm lens and just sticking to that one system. And I made the video because, it was an exercise that I wanted to do for myself and just to basically see the impact of it, but also just to share with you guys because I think it's really important for any photographer, at least at some point, just try and stick to one camera and one lens and just focus on shooting. And it was a really fun exercise, and I stuck to it for about 4 to 5 months, but it was never meant to be a permanent thing. It was really just an exercise for me to do. Now today I want to talk about what's essentially the exact opposite of that. And that's not to say that you should just go out and buy all of the cameras, although that is really fun to do, but it's more about the experience of that. It's about the experience of shooting different cameras and different formats and just kind of seeing how that, influences your photography, your vision, and just how you shoot all around. Now, one of my favorite things about shooting film is the fact that there are so many different options out there. You have so many different camera bodies and camera styles. You have all of these lenses to choose from. You can choose different film stocks. You can choose different developers for the darkroom, different papers to print with. And more than anything, there's a big difference in so many different formats that are out there. When you're going from, say, a 35mm camera to a medium format camera, more than likely your aspect ratio is going to change. So that's going to change, what kind of frame you're working with in terms of composition, but also it's more than likely going to change just the way you're holding the camera and the steps it takes to shoot that camera. And even if you go from medium format to 4x5 or 8x10, you're inevitably going to be seeing a lot of different steps that you have to take just to make a single photo. And those are the kind of things that I really want to talk about today, are just the subtle differences that you're going to see in photography, and your photography specifically, whenever you're shooting all of these different cameras. For example, if I'm shooting a photo with my Leica, and I'm taking, let's say, a portrait of somebody, I'm holding the camera up like this to my face, and the camera is up at eye level, and I'm shooting behind the camera, but I'm off to the side a little bit because of the viewfinder. So people can see my face, but they can see, my expression. They can see if I'm smiling, they can see as I'm talking. And this, in my opinion, just is a little bit less threatening as, if I were shooting with an SLR and I'm holding the camera like this and I'm basically hiding behind the camera. Sometimes there's a little bit of tension there. People can feel a little bit self-conscious because they think you're looking through this lens and they automatically just assume you're really close, and you can just see the tension in somebody, the way they're holding themselves. It's like they put this guard up. But on top of that, let's say I'm shooting medium format and I'm shooting a photo with my Yashica. And this is a twin lens reflex camera, and it has a waist level viewfinder. So whenever I'm shooting this camera, I'm not holding it up to my eye like this. I'm holding it down below, usually around the waist or chest level, and I'm looking down. I'm not looking directly at my subject anymore. I'm looking down into the camera like this. And whenever you go from a camera like that, any kind of SLR or even a rangefinder that you're holding up by your face and almost kind of hiding behind it, whenever you switch to something like this, you're automatically going to see a difference in your subject. They're going to be holding themselves a little bit differently and carrying themselves, and just their expression. It's like you can just see that level of tension just kind of drop a little bit. And I think it has to do with a few things, more than anything the viewfinder, the fact that you're not holding it up by your face. You're kind of looking down, and they're not looking through the lens directly at you and, in your eyes, but it's like they're just looking into this lens here in the camera itself, and not exactly, they're not feeling as threatened that way. And I know it sounds like such a silly thing, but these things really do make a difference. And on top of that, I think with cameras like this, there's a certain charm to it. People aren't used to seeing these kind of cameras that often, and it's immediately just a good, icebreaker almost. It really does help relieve some of that tension there. So, obviously, if you're shooting with something like a Rolleiflex, you can get different viewfinders, and you can get a prism finder in which you would hold it up by your face, but generally with a system like this, you're going to be using a waist level viewfinder. And in my opinion, that does make a big difference whenever you're taking a portrait of somebody, because it is about getting that person to feel comfortable in front of the camera and to get a really good portrait out of them. Now, of course, not every photo that you take is going to be a portrait of somebody, and I totally understand that. So let's say you're shooting a landscape or, a cityscape, anything like that, and you're not really worried about someone's expression or how comfortable the person is. You're just out shooting. Now, if I'm shooting with my Leica, that's a 35mm camera, so I have that aspect ratio in mind. Now I grab my Yashica out of the bag and I'm starting to compose, and all of a sudden the composition I was working with my Leica is not going to work at all, because this is a 6x6 camera. You know, I don't have to worry about what's a portrait orientation photo going to look like or a landscape orientation photo. This is 6x6. All sides are equal, so I'm working with just one square to make a composition, and that is going to be completely different than what you would do with a 35mm camera. Me personally, I usually look for any kind of symmetry whenever I first look through a 6x6 camera. If I'm going to take a photo, I always look to see, you know, if I can find any kind of interesting symmetry there, because all sides are equal and I try to find a good balance there. But if I'm shooting with this compared to my M6, whatever I compose with my M6, it's more than likely not going to have a good composition if I just pick this up. You know, there's always a different kind of balance you're going to see with different cameras. And that's really the whole point of this video, because it doesn't matter what you're taking a photo of. If you're shooting a different camera in a different format, you're always going to see that subject differently, no matter what it is. And that's my favorite thing about these different formats, you know? There are so many different options out there, and they're all going to influence you differently. So rather than just talking about the differences here, I want to share some images from a recent shoot that I had with you guys, because it goes hand in hand with what it is we're talking about today. A few months ago, I was shooting with a band, Come Wind, for their new album. And originally they called me because they wanted to use one of my photos for their album cover, which I was honored and excited about. And then we started talking about actually doing a shoot with the band just to help promote the new album. So whenever they called me, you know, I've worked with these guys before, so whenever they called, I was really excited about it. But for this particular shoot, they said, you know, we don't want the typical promo shots, you know, we want something a little bit different, and we want to work with you and just let you shoot however you want to shoot. And as a photographer, when someone gives you that kind of creative freedom and they're paying you to do so, it's extremely rare. And I was blown away by this because, like I said, it's not something you see every day. So I was really, really excited about this because, you know, I immediately thought, all right, I really want to shoot just black and white film. I don't want to do any kind of digital stuff, no artificial lighting. I just want black and white film and natural light. And that was my go-to. And they were all for the idea. And I was extremely, extremely excited about this shoot. And that's when I started just kind of planning how was I going to shoot everything. So knowing I was only going to shoot black and white film and natural light, my immediate idea was I'm going to shoot everything with my Hasselblad. I'm going to have my Hasselblad 500 cm with the 80mm lens, and I'm just going to shoot Ilford HP5, just at box speed, no frills, nothing crazy. I'm just going to stick to one camera, one lens, and one film stock, just because that way whenever I'm on the shoot, I'm not, you know, messing around with different cameras. It'll be really quick, I'll be efficient about it, and, you know, I'm going to know exactly what to expect. There aren't going to be any variables in there that are going to change things. I'm going to have a really, really consistent set of images that I can deliver to these guys once we're all said and done. And then I really started thinking about this because I thought, this is not an everyday kind of opportunity. These guys are giving me full creative freedom to just shoot however I want with whatever I want. And I probably shouldn't just take the safe route here. As much as, you know, I would like to do that just because, you know, it would be less stress on me, I still thought, you know, I want to try something different and just take a risk here and shoot a lot of different things and just give them a good variety, but still a consistent look with, you know, only black and white film, only natural light, and just shoot them the way I see fit. So that's when I decided to pack a lot of different formats and different cameras into the mix. So I packed up my Hasselblad just like I had planned, with HP5 of course, and I also threw in a Holga. Now this is another 6x6 camera, but it's literally just a piece of plastic with a shutter and a lens. And if you're not familiar with Holgas, then you should definitely go pick one up because they're insanely cheap, and they're really, really easy to shoot. It's literally, you have one button and that's it. And although I was already shooting 6x6 with the Hasselblad, I knew this was going to make me shoot completely differently and give me a way, way different look in the Holga. So I threw that in there as well to shoot HP5 like I was shooting with the Hasselblad. And on top of that, I also threw in a 35mm camera. And my choice that I went for this was the Nikon FM2 with the 35mm f2 AIS. And rather than picking my M6 with a 35mm, I decided to go with the Nikon just because in most cases where I'm going to be shooting portraits, I prefer an SLR, and I knew I was going to be shooting some close-up individual portraits of each member. So I went with the Nikon, and that was really going to be you know, my 35mm camera, and that's it for the shoot. So on top of that, I also wanted to mix in some instant film just because there's a certain look that you cannot replicate with any other camera, you know, whether it be the camera itself or or the film stock. So I loaded up the Polaroid 180, and that is a gorgeous camera, and it's fully mechanical, fully manual, and I love shooting with that thing. And on top of that, I loaded that up with Fuji FP3000B, which is their incredible but discontinued high-speed black and white film. And for the Polaroid 180, I also threw in the portrait kit, which is basically goggles for the camera, and that just lets me focus a little bit closer, and that was for individual portraits of each member. So for the shoot, we went to a local state park that I always go to just to drive around and shoot photos, and that's exactly what we did. We would drive from spot to spot and shoot, and whenever it came to actually shooting, I tried to just trust my gut and pick the camera that I thought would look best. And, you know, I didn't want to have that option paralysis where I was just overwhelmed with choices and, you know, that kept me from shooting. I just wanted to grab the first camera that I thought would fit best with, you know, the given scene that we were at, and that's what I went with. And there were a couple scenes where I shot, you know, the same scene with a couple of different cameras, but when it came to reviewing the photos and picking my favorites, I always ended up going with the one that I shot originally. You know, it was what I went with my gut, and that seemed to be the best fit. And, you know, some cases it looks best with a square composition, some look best with kind of that 35mm documentary look, and then some just really shine with that instant film look that I got with the Polaroid. So I mean, all of these different options, but they all came into play really, really well. It was just an awesome shoot. I had a blast with these guys, and like I mentioned, I've worked with these guys before, and you know, this was easily my favorite shoot I've ever done with a band because you know, they're great people, just genuinely kind people, and you know, we had a lot of fun as always, but just the level of trust that they had in me meant a lot to me. You know, they let me shoot this like it was a personal project, essentially. So I'm really, really happy with how they came out. And although I've said plenty already and probably way too much about the shoot, now we can just go ahead and take a look at some of the photos, and you guys can hear one of their songs off the new album.
My skin and bones have formed the walls of a house abandoned since I was young. I took the floorboards up to see all the dust that collected beneath them, and all I found were broken picture frames and remnants of who I was when I had dreams of filling this house with the things of importance. And year after year after year, I made all these promises year after year after year. I am vacant, I am worn, and I'm showing all the signs of wearing for people who walk my floors. And I've been thinking through all my doubts that I'm gonna pack my bags and just move out. My eyelids pulled open the window so I could bathe in the bright lights. But it seems that lately the sun has abandoned the sky and no one can feel it. But people come from time to time and ask me, where has your property gone? I respond with, come back next year, I will build it up better. Year after year after year, I keep making promises year after year after year. I am vacant, I am worn, and I'm showing all the signs of wearing for people who walk my floors. And I've been thinking through all my doubts that I'm gonna pack my bags and just move out.
So there you guys have it. Those are some of my favorite photos from the shoot, and honestly, I'm extremely happy with how they turned out. And I really don't think that if I were shooting with just one camera and one lens like I originally planned, I don't think I would be as happy with the photos as I am having so much variety. And you know, it really did change the way I saw each scene, and I think it helped me take full advantage of the different locations and the different light that we had to work with. You know, I was able to compose differently each time, and that really, really helped me out. So as much as I love just keeping things simple, and you know, I'll grab my M6 and just throw it around my neck and leave the house. You know, I love just keeping things simple and just carrying one camera with me wherever I go. But it's still fun to just grab a bunch of different cameras and a bunch of different film and, you know, just explore those options, you know. Don't feel like you have to be consistent every single day. You know, this should always be fun, you know. I mean, photography is especially as a job, it can be stressful, but more than anything, it needs to be fun and you need to be enjoying it because that's what it's about. So, you know, if you guys have other options out there, just explore all the different cameras out there, shoot all of the cameras. They're all fun. And that's what I love about shooting these different cameras. So a huge thanks to Comwind for allowing me to share those photos and the music with you guys, and for hiring me in the first place and allowing me to have that kind of creative freedom. I really appreciate it. But as for you guys, the viewers, if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave those below. I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say about all of these different cameras and, you know, how that influences your photography. And if you guys haven't heard Comwind at all, except for, you know, what you just heard, you should definitely check them out. I'm going to put links in the description to all of their music so you guys can pick up the album and check out their website. And they actually have a blog post as well on their website about the shoot, so you can check that out too. And if you guys haven't already, make sure you like the video and you're subscribed. This is probably going to be the last video of the year. With the holidays, everybody is busy and traveling, and I'm right there with them. So I'm going to have a video the first week of the new year, and I'm really excited about that. I think it's a fitting video for the new year, but until then, hope you guys have a good holiday season and, you know, a happy new year as well. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. This has been an awesome year, and I'll see you guys next time.